Hey FFR listeners, did you know that if you join our Patreon community, you can get nifty perks like early access, exclusive weekly bonus segments, access to our friendly Discord, and more? That's right, you can get cool stuff and help us keep doing FFR at the same time. What are you waiting for? Go to patreon.com/femfreak.
There's a scene near the end where Harley Quinn offers a hair tie to Dinah Lance to put her hair up while she's fighting. Someone with long hair, but I would say mostly women, would identify with. And like a woman writer wrote that. It's so minor and so real. Welcome to Feminist Frequency Radio. This is the show that asks you to be critical of the media you love. I'm Anita Sarkeesian, and I'm joined today by two Gotham vigilantes with a taste for that spicy number 32. Carolyn Pettit.
Hey, hey.
And Ebony Adams.
Extra spice.
Extra spice. Well, then, does that mean Carolyn wants it with mild spice?
I do see Caro as the huntress. Yes.
Yeah, cool.
That was perfect.
I know Carolyn's about to be like, but I like spice.
I do actually. I like spicy. I like really spicy food.
I thought you were going to say, but I see myself as Black Canary or something, but that's even better.
This week, we'll be talking about the DC spinning carnival ride of a comic book movie, Birds of Prey, and the fantabulous emancipation of one Harley Quinn. Grab your fun guns. Hello, friends.
Hello, friends.
Hey.
This is for no one but me, the person sitting across from Anita, but her hair looks great today. I can't stop looking at it.
This is the third time she's brought this up.
I know, because it looks great.
I'm feeling really good about myself.
Yeah, don't ever do anything different with your hair.
Well, thanks. I washed it. And
That'll do it.
I put a little bit of curl gel in it. And this is 2 days later.
See, I support the people who have to plan 2 or 3 days in advance for how they want their hair to look.
Yeah,
I'm all
real.
about it.
For
I'm
real.
all about it.
But let's be real. I also get a hairline keratin treatment every 10 weeks to help with all the frizzy baby hairs that go insane at my hairline.
I don't know what a hairline keratin treatment is. I don't roll in those kind of circles.
Yeah,
so.
I'm just saying there's like, I'm like, yeah,
There's
it's easy. I just
shit.
wake up, didn't look like this. But I'm like, no, there's fucking levels to this shit.
Gotcha.
Sure. Because being a femme in this universe is...
it's a fantabulous lace front, y'all. I'm just telling you. She spent a lot of money on this wig.
Maybe I need to get into that game.
All right.
How do you travel with wigs?
This is not intro banter material. This is bonus material when we have like 4 hours.
Okay. Great.
Carol, how you doing?
I'm doing okay. Hanging in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dive in then. Birds of Prey, the latest addition to the DC cinematic universe, arrived a couple weeks ago to the horrified screams of frothing man babies across the internet. Picking up after the events of 2016's Suicide Squad, the film follows the neon-splattered exploits of Harley Quinn, Gotham Gadfly, and the Joker's erstwhile paramour, as she realizes she's more than capable of just being some maniac sidekick. We're also introduced to a fierce crop of fellow ass-kickers, Renee Montoya, Black Canary, and the Crossbow Killer, or the Huntress, as she prefers, as they alternatively pursue or try to evade Ewan McGregor's wildly melodramatic Roman Sionis. Roman Sionis.
Is it
Roman?
P.S., folks, I wrote the script today. I was sure I was right when I wrote it.
Is it Ronan or Roman?
Oh, I think it's Roman.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's Roman. Sionis. There you go. It's
Keep
fine.
this in, Rob.
Whatever. The Black Mask. You could just call him that.
There you go.
There we go. Depending on who you listen to, the film is either a total failure that proves that feminism has no place in comic movies or a pretty fun piece of movie making. On that last note, I would like to begin this conversation with a little tweets, a little internet banter, a little social media section. There was an amusing tweet that got sent around after the release of Birds of Prey by @Abu Jimin. And it just said, y'all, I think I witnessed sexism. And they screen capped two Google searches. One is Ford versus Ferrari opening weekend, and the other one is Birds of Prey opening weekend. And they made basically the same amount of money, but one of them says, dominates the weekend box office. And the other one says disappoints at the box office, which is just so egregious. And they're both from Business Insider. I think they might be both by the same author. And
don't the films have similar budgets too?
The budget, yes, the budgets are almost identical.
Yeah, because I remember like part of the not at all insincere response from people when you pointed out like, hey, it seems like some of the reaction to this film might just be because of sexism. And they were like, no, based upon the budget, the film underperformed and whatever. And I was like, okay, but if you actually look at the facts, Jack.
It's the same fucking budget.
Yeah.
And so then you get all of this like, oh my God, a rabbit hole erupted from this because then there was the like, but what about marketing budgets and da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and you're just like, oh my God, it's sexist. Can you, like, it is so hard for white dudes to accept that systemic oppression could be the cause of things. Like the amount of effort that is taken to try to justify shit that's very easily explained by patriarchy and white supremacy. It's just, anyways, that is an amusing thing that I'm very glad was pointed out. Not amusing, but you know what I mean? Because that stuff just, it's so constant and it's so prevalent all the time. And I think it's hard to see unless you put them back to back and really see that. So
yeah, and I mean, even as someone who participates in and tries to produce my own feminist media criticism, the kind of being surrounded by a narrative that says, "Oh, Birds of Prey isn't doing well," seeped into my expectation. I only saw the film last night, and there was a part of me that was like, "Oh, maybe it's not any good. Maybe it is underperforming for a reason. Reasons that are not." Totally separate from, but maybe, have more to do with how bad of a film it is. And I had a fantastic time.
Yeah.
Like I can see myself seeing this movie again in the theater.
Here's the thing is when we talked about this on the podcast, that trailer was garbage.
Oh yeah, it was.
Like it looked like the dumbest, like
it would
quote
look
unquote
like
girl power. Like it did not look good at all. And so I think a lot of us were, a lot of people are not going to go see it because of that. And I was not looking forward to seeing it and probably wouldn't have if we didn't decide that it was a topic that we felt like we should cover. But then that weekend, I got a bunch of texts from people being like, hey, have you seen Birds of Prey yet? I'm really curious what you think. And just seeing posts about it not being trash. And so it's hard to go into something with all of this setup. But I enjoyed it with some caveats. It was fun. It was a fun fucking movie that was like coherent and I liked the characters and I was like engaged and it was pretty and like, it was very enjoyable.
It was very fun. Caro, and this question's for you too, Anita. Did either of you see Suicide Squad? Because I haven't seen Suicide Squad. Like I was not interested in it.
Let me explain to you how I saw Suicide Squad.
Oh, Lord.
So I would never say I saw it, but it was on an airplane on mute in front of me.
Was some guy kicking your seat and punching your seat?
Oh my God, what the fuck? We need to talk about that shit.
Right?
Anyways, if you don't know what that is, join us in the bonus.
Mm.
And it was one of those movies that even on mute, the whole time you knew exactly what was happening and it looked horrific, like absolutely awful. So I didn't actually watch it, but I feel like I watched it, Right.
Caro, what about you?
No, I've never seen Suicide Squad. Don't have any desire to see Suicide Squad.
No. You talk about like chatter around a movie affecting whether you want to go see it or not. Just hearing about Jared Leto's malarkey, I was like, I'm not interested in whatever he thought he was doing in this film. Nope, I'm not paying no money to see it. But having now watched Birds of Prey, I'm kind of interested in seeing more Harley Quinn, even though just looking at stills from the movie, I'm about 1,000% more interested visually in the way she looks in this movie than what she was wearing in the first movie. Like Daddy's Little Monster, not so much into it, but like just ass kicking roller derby girl, really heavily into it. That's my kink.
I want to go into Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, but first, Caro, do you have like general thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I will say that I just don't think I'm the right viewer for this film, like, because for me, Harley Quinn is a character who is like a spice that is really intense and where, maybe a tiny bit is good to season a dish, but a whole lot. Like, I just have a visceral reaction to Harley Quinn as a character where the way that she is so over the top is, to me, just personally, in the same way that people, like people in real life who I feel are very big and very performative, like, I just want to curl up and withdraw away from them. Harley Quinn as a character, like, provokes that same response in me. So this is not a criticism of the film at all. I'm really glad that the character is being, like, liberated from her direct connection to the Joker and everything. I just don't deal well with, like, a whole lot of Harley Quinn. So for me, this movie, it was like, whenever it focused on Black Canary, I was like, this is a relief, or Huntress, or
Montoya,
Rosie Perez's character. Yeah. Like, I would have loved, for me, the movie was also trying to do too much by doing, like, origin stories and stuff of, like, all of, like, the Huntress as well and all these characters, and I think I would have been more down with it and enjoyed it more if it were more focused and less kind of, because Harley Quinn's narrating it and she's constantly doing this thing where she has to be like, oh wait, I need to explain this, and then go back and, like, explain it, and that it didn't work for me, but I recognize that, like, that's a lot of that is just my own personal, like, tastes and aversions. So I think that there are people who are way more receptive to what this film is doing, who could much better speak to it as a film than I can. Like, it's just not. I'm just not the right viewer for this movie. So I guess that's my sort of just.
Are you going to leave the podcast early? So thanks.
Yeah, fair. I mean, which is fair. Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel like the back and forth works because it is, like, it feels like a movie that exploded out of Harley Quinn's very messed up brain.
No, exactly.
But which to me was like, because as you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah, but it kind of worked for me you just roll with it. So as I walked out of the movie, I was like, I feel like I should have bigger criticisms of this, but it just was kind of fun and, like, easy in this goofy sort of way. My biggest criticism of it is the violence. It is intensely and kind of unrelentlessly violent. And I was also like, well, is it because it's women and we're not used to seeing that many women be that violent? Or do I actually have a problem with violence in general and I'm more forgiving of it when it's meant? Like, I don't know where I landed on that, but the violent piece was a lot, even though I felt like it was it was kind of entertaining violence, which also feels gross to say. But the sexualized violence I had an issue with. So sorry, now I'm going into a lot of different directions. I mean, like, but the character of Sionis, like, being, like, deeply misogynist and, like, assaulting that woman and, like, shaming and embarrassing her and humiliating her. Like, I was like, this is not okay. Like, it did not need to be here. You didn't need to show that he's extra bad because he also hates women.
Yeah. I have many thoughts about the 73 things that you just brought up. One thing about the violence. I mean, there's a way in which we kind of forgive or receive differently this kind of very cartoonish violence wherein it's meant to be funny, right? So I wrote the script today. I threw in a little throwaway line about the fun gun. P.S. When Harley Quinn comes into that police station and is, like, just point blank shooting, glitter bombs and, just, like, breaking arms and legs and whatever. It's meant to be funny, but it's also horrific. And
it's
at this
so
point,
horrific.
And I'm a viewer. Like, I did have to turn away. There are scenes where it's not like, carnival, whimsical, marshmallow, punches, but it's actually like people getting stabbed in the throat or,
it's
like
egregious.
Yeah,
and, like,
it's very graphic.
There's face, like, ripping off people's faces.
Yeah.
Which were all used to show just how bad the bad guy is. And it had to be that level of extreme of, like, literally peeling off faces because Harley Quinn and her band of misfits were also extremely grotesquely violent. So it needed to be a couple of steps further so that we would accept Harley's violence and not accept this other guy's violence.
Yeah. And it's interesting because I watched the film by myself. And I was torn while watching it, thinking like, if I was a parent, I would be tossed to CPS because I would bring like every 10-year-old in the neighborhood to see this movie, and it is not appropriate for children. And yet there is a way in which this film expresses such wild joy in being a kind of reckless girl, like a reckless young woman, wildly alive, that I kind of appreciated because we just don't get to see that very much. Is the way that they manifest that wild joy appropriate? Not at all. But nevertheless, I was like, God, this just looks so fun. It looks so fun. Even when Harley is like, oh my God, getting blackout drunk and taking drugs and puking in clubs. Oh my God, I'm the worst because I was like, oh my God, Harley, been there. We've all been 22, you know?
Going through the breakup of your life.
Yeah, I get it. So, but just real quick about Harley Quinn as a character, I totally hear what you're saying, Carol, because she is a lot. If you had to deal with someone like her in life, you would be exhausted. You would not be able to deal with it. And one of the things that I actually liked about the film is the way that they show people being just irritated with Harley. And also she says herself, like, I'm a terrible person, you know, like she acknowledges that because she actually does try and sell out Cassandra, the kid. And the movie doesn't try and say like, oh, no, it was a double cross. Oh, you just didn't get it. Oh, whatever. Like she's got serious fucked up things going on. And I think the film does allow you the space to be like, God, this is funny on the page. This is funny on the screen, but there's no way in which I would ever have to want to deal with someone, you know, around me just constantly talking in that voice and, you know, like throwing margaritas at me and, you know, whatever.
I mean, I've always hated Harley Quinn's character, like in the comics, not the comics, in the cartoons. Mm-hmm. And like when I saw like when I heard about Suicide Squad, I was shocked at how enjoyable she was to watch in this movie.
Also, Margot Robbie is a fucking boss.
Dude.
The way her face, like when you see her in moments of like stress or anger or sadness, and you see her physically work to force that maniacal smile on her face, like Margot Robbie is putting in the work. She is good.
I was like, eye rolling, Harley Quinn, whoever this woman is that's playing Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad. Like I was very dismissive of the whole thing. Now that I've seen Margot Robbie in several things, like her performance as Harley Quinn legit blew me away because she has such range in the way that she, like, I don't know if it's fair to say she's like a character actor or whatever, but like just like from Tanya, Jesus.
You and your pronunciations today,
It's
Canada.
because we used to work with someone named Tonya, who spelt it Tanya, and it was a whole thing. Anyways, so yeah, I was also very super impressed with her performance in all. Like it just, yeah, I don't know. I totally hear you, Caro, and that it could be too much. And I feel like if you described this to me, I would feel like it was too much, and I wouldn't like I really would hate following. I don't like anti-hero characters. I would hate following a character like this. But there's something about just like easing into it and watching. You know what? I think it's because it wasn't just Harley Quinn being Joker's lover and being kind of ditzy and dumb and hurting people. It was Harley Quinn like feeling feelings and trying to figure out how to feel feelings and what to do with it and how to be independent, and like the contrast between that and watching Montoya be like constantly taken advantage of, or like being a very skilled detective but having all these men trample over her. Like there was a bunch of contrast there that I feel like made it a little deeper than I had been expecting it to be.
I would love to have gotten more Renee Montoya. Also, shout out to Ali Wong, looking gorgeous. Wish we would have got some backstory.
I also want to go back briefly to the discussion of the action sequences in this film, which, yes, certainly are like over the top violent. Definitely, I mean, obviously deliberately so. But I do want to say in their favor or in their defense that. So this film is directed by a woman named Kathy Yan, and I do think that whatever we may say about the tone of the violence and maybe its egregiousness, or all the kinds of concerns that we typically have about violence on film, the glorification of it, and all of those things, I do think there is a a clarity to the way the violence or the action sequences, I should say, in this film are shot. That is refreshing, like in the sense that that this is not a Michael Bay style like quick cut extravaganza where you can't make heads or tails of what's happening on screen. Like the sort of the choreography and the way it's presented is like extremely clear, and to me that is always a more skillful and engaging approach to presenting action filmmaking than the sort of extremely popular, for lack of a better term, Michael Bay-esque approach. So, whatever we may think of the tone of it and all of that, those concerns aside, I do think that that credit is due for the craftsmanship or the skill with which the action is presented on screen in this film.
Oh, yeah. It was just like, for me, it was just a delight to watch Margot Robbie bounce from scene to scene, from person to person. And when she is engaged in like this gymnast mayhem, I enjoyed myself so much. And there's a scene in, what is it, like a police evidence room or storage room or something. And there are shots when it's so clear that the origins of this character is from the comics and graphic novels, because the way that the camera frames them is very much the way that they would be framed across panels. And I just thought it was very, like very smart and very tactile filmmaking. And I was like, I felt like I could settle into it. And as you say, Caro, it was so clear what was going on. And it is such a change from the kind of like grim, dark manner of shooting films like this, wherein, it's muddy, and you're almost oppressed by the amount of and the way that the violence and the action kind of infuses the screen. But we don't get that here. Like you're always kind of aware of where Harley is, whether she's ricocheting off something or, bouncing with her Looney Tunes shoes, through a frame. I loved it.
That scene you're talking about where she is behind the piles of Coke. That shit killed me. Where she's like behind the piles of Coke and they're shooting at this huge pallet of like bags of cocaine, and she like the dust is coming out, and the look on her face when she's like, I'm fucking high. I'm coming after y'all. Was just like there were little details like that I did find super enjoyable. My favorite thing, and this piece has taken the internet by storm, appropriately so, is the hair tie. There's a scene near the end where Harley Quinn offers a hair tie to Dinah Lance to put her hair up while she's fighting. And it, like, I think the reason that's one, that is something that like someone with long hair, but I would say mostly women would identify with. And like a woman writer wrote that. But also it's so minor and so real. Like it's such a thing, right? I always have a hair tie around my wrist because I don't know when I'm going to want to put my hair up, right? Yeah. And like, it was just this small little detail. And I think that people really resonated with it because it's so rare to see that specifics. Like I remember once hearing Greg Rucka, the comic writer, speak at a convention, and he was talking about like writing female characters, and that advice that had been given to him at one point was, or comment that was said to him was like, does your character have cramps when she's menstruating? And he was like, whoa. And it's not that it was written into the comic that he was addressing. It's just that he had never thought of that. And I think about that all the fucking time. I think about it when I see like superhero, like, science fiction, whatever. I'm like, does she have cramps? Does she need to take a break? Like, how is she going to make it through that kind of thing? So these tiny little details, I think, are really, really resonant for audiences because you feel seen in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's one of the things that, if I'm watching a woman or a femme or anyone really with long hair fight on screen, I always think like, you need to be tying that shit up. Someone's going to grab it. Like that's, you need to deal with that shit. So that, they just little like throwaway acknowledgement.
Yeah,
loved it.
I love it.
Can we talk about Journey Smollett Bell as Black Canary, as Dinah Lance in this movie? Let me tell you something. I started screaming internally the minute I saw her in those gold disco pants. And I didn't stop until the goddamn end of that movie. She looked amazing. The look of this film was so pitch perfect to me.
It
was
really
so
was. I think the costuming and the set pieces were all like really, it just, the thing about the film is that all of the creative pieces of it work together in a way that really made it resonate, right? Where it felt light and colorful, even though it was kind of dark and intense, right? And I think what Carol's talking about with the action sequences and like the direction and the comic style framing really contributed all of that. We need to talk about the I shaved my balls t-shirt.
Please do, because I'm getting you one for Christmas. And it's going to be that exact size so it can be baggy on you.
What we have to talk about, forget that. That goddamn breakfast sandwich sequence.
Girl.
Holy shit. Okay, for those of you who don't know, breakfast sandwich sequences are a trope in movies. This
is a thing in New York, which, Gotham is, modeled after, right? Like the breakfast sandwich, like the bodega breakfast sandwich, it's a legit thing.
It is. And also that, and the fact that it kept going and like the fact that it became a part of like it was such a perfect way of describing just how fucking wackadoodle Harley is, where she's like literally running for her life, but being like, but my sandwich. And then she shoves it in her shirt.
Yes. Been there, girl.
But just the fact that the film stopped and did this very sensual, cinematic take on making a breakfast sandwich. That sold me. I'm sorry.
It's the abiding romance of the film. There is no other love as deep as Harley's love for that breakfast sandwich. Every man in this film is a piece of shit. And the film did not back away from that. I love that there was no like, oh, but this one guy is great. Even Doc with the spicy number 32 sold her out. This film was unafraid to go there, y'all.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't think that it's like perfect and wonderful, but I do think that it was enjoyable, and it was surprisingly enjoyable, which is why I think I'm giving it a lot more praise than I normally would, is because I really didn't expect this. So yeah, go see it.
Did you?
Not that we're done talking about it, but
yeah. And again, this question is for both you and Caro. Have you seen most of the DC movies? Like the more recent ones. So obviously, like the Batman films and then Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. Because I there's no way I keep up with them the way that I did with the Marvel ones, which were just a cultural juggernaut. And I did not read DC Comics as a kid, nor have I kept up with them or been, reintroduced to them as an adult. So I know nothing about Black Canary, whether Renee Montoya exists outside of this movie. So Cassandra Crane, I don't know shit about it.
This is not honest to the comics at all.
Okay.
It's very divergent from the comics as far as I am been told.
Mm-hmm.
One thing that this is embarrassing. Ready for my embarrassment?
Yeah.
As they started introducing the characters of Black Canary and the Huntress, I was like, oh my God, these are all characters that I know from Arrow. Because I don't know them from anything else. And so they started
Anita,
talking
you should
about.
Be ashamed.
I'm so ashamed. They were like Helena Bertinelli. I was like, oh my God, that's and then I'm like, oh, that's where they got all these characters from. It's funny.
Listeners, I walked in on Anita watching Arrow one day and my world was shook.
I was severely depressed, okay? Are you going to judge me for that?
Not for being depressed, but for your self-soothing. I wish I had known.
It's those goddamn salmon pull-ups. The salmon ladder, where
I don't understand these words.
All right, y'all. The salmon ladder is this thing where it's a pull-up bar, but you hold the bar and you jump and move it to the rung above. And so the enormous amount of upper arm strength.
Dante's ninth circle of hell shit is this?
Oh my God, dreams. Those are definitely life goals. It's really also hot to watch someone doing it. And it happens a lot in Arrow, I'm just saying.
And what's it called? The salmon ladder?
The salmon ladder.
There's a terrific...
It's also on Ninja Warrior, whatever, American Ninja Warrior, that show that Ebony's just, you should see the look on her face right now.
The look on my face is, I'm having so many questions about what I assumed your media consumption was like, but we don't have time to go into it today. So anyway, Caro, were you a DC fan?
No, not really. I mean, growing up, I mean, Batman, when the Tim Burton films came out, was this like inescapable phenomenon, and I sort of absorbed some of that. But no, like and certainly the recent spate of DC films, I've seen I saw Wonder Woman, and I saw the Justice League, the film, and
the ones that we talked about on the podcast.
Yeah, the one, and
basically
Shazam. Like those are the ones.
Oh my God, I forgot you and I had to watch that for the pod.
Yeah.
We should have tried to do Shazam, the mythical Shaquille
I wasn't on
O'Neal
that,
movie.
right? Because I didn't watch it.
No. That was a little bit of self-torture that Caro and I did.
Oh, well.
I don't remember hating Shazam. I thought Shazam was all right, didn't I? Or I don't remember. I don't know.
That says a lot.
I remember that my abiding impression was that in that movie, Mark Strong reminded me of Mr. Robotnik. And isn't that from Sonic? Like,
yeah.
Isn't that who Jim
you
Carrey
can now
plays
see Jim
in the new
Carrey
Sonic
as Dr. Robotnik in cinemas right now.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Are we done with Birds of Prey?
I think so. Anyways, I had a good time, so.
Yeah. Great. Carolyn didn't. We did.
Right. Yeah.
That's fine.
There you go.
Not everything is for everyone.
All right, let's boogie on down the road.
Great. Well, when we get back, we'll be boogieing with our freakouts.
Oh, God. Dad.
Hey friends, Carolyn here. If you enjoy listening in on our conversations each week about what's happening in the world of media and pop culture and how that impacts our larger culture, please head on over to patreon.com/femfreak and help us keep bringing FFR to you.
What's your freak out?
Now it's time to talk about what's been thrilling us, moving us, upsetting us, or infuriating us, or any other feeling you feel like wanting to have, because we are a pro-feelings podcast. We're going to talk about our freakouts. Ebony, would you like to go first?
Sure. I am freaking out about the Pan-African Film Festival, which is going on right now here in LA. At the time that this episode drops, I believe the film festival will still be going. It ends on the 23rd. At the time that you hear this, I will already have presented my panel there, but I don't care. The Pan-African Film and Arts Festival is the largest Black film festival in the country. It is 10 days of more films and panels, discussions, art exhibits than you could possibly consume, but just really the best, the brightest, the newest, the most thought-provoking, just really, really culturally dense, and it's something I look forward to in LA every year. So I'm really honored to get to moderate a panel on Black women in Hollywood coming up during the festival. So yeah, I just encourage you, if you are in LA, then please do make a trip down to Baldwin Hills Cinemark, where the festival is located. And there's shorts, there's documentaries, there's narrative, there's something, for everyone. And, this festival is a big deal. And if you are not a Black person in LA or not attuned to Black media, you'd be, I won't say forgiven for not knowing that it's happening, but it's not as if the mainstream media is rushing to cover it. But, it's a big deal. Big names come out. So I encourage everyone to go. The Pan-African Film Festival happening in LA until the 23rd of February.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what are you freaking out about?
I'm freaking out about a novel called The Intuitionist by Colson Whitehead.
Ooh.
This is have you read this, Ebony?
I have not yet. It's on my TBR pile.
Okay. The Intuitionist is a novel. So Colson Whitehead is an author who, this is the first novel of his that I've read, but he's known for novels that I think do a lot of interesting world building stuff and kind of alternative history stuff. So, for instance, he has a novel, I believe, called The Underground Railroad, which sort of retells the story of the Underground Railroad, but it's a literal railroad in his vision. So there's kind of fantastical elements to his books. But so this novel, The Intuitionist, takes place in I'd say an alternate world United States, I think maybe New York City, in which like elevators are very important. And there's an organization called the Elevator Inspectors. Elevator inspectors are extremely important to the city, the bureaucracy, the functioning of the city. And a woman named Lila May happens to be the first like Black female elevator inspector in the city, and she also is a part. So there's two different like schools of elevator inspectors, and Lila May is part of the newer, sort of more radical or less traditional school called the Intuitionists, who have an approach to elevator inspection that is more rooted in like feeling and intuition and less in sort of, I guess, what you might call scientific observation. And so Lila May represents a lot of changes, right? She's her gender, her race, her approach to the craft of elevator inspection, all of these things. And so very early on in the novel, she is like set up for an act of negligence, which she did not commit, but an elevator is rigged to fall that she had inspected, and when she inspected it, it was fine, and so she's set up to take the fall for this this problem that anyway, I'm only like halfway through the novel at this point, but I'm just like so in awe of the novelist's ability to conjure this world and make it feel so sort of concrete and like believable, while and still sort of very fantastical. And it has to me a very sort of just alluring, sleek sort of feel to the world of the film of the novel. It's obviously the ways in which it's exploring issues of race and gender and in our institutions is really fascinating, and it's very entertaining, as well as being this very layered and thoughtful exploration of some really serious issues. So really digging The Intuitionist currently.
Awesome. My freak out this week is also a book. I think I talked about this on a previous freak out, but it is the Astronaut series by our friend of the pod, Mary Robinette Kowal. Yay. It's 2 books, The Calculating Stars and Faded Sky. So I think I talked about The Calculating Stars, which was about when a meteor hits Earth. It hits Virginia, I think, in the U.S., and it starts this massive carbon emission, yada, yada, science, blah, blah, that makes it so that the international community unifies around trying to get to space and trying to get to Mars, so that when the Earth is no longer habitable, that humans are not eradicated. So in Faded Sky, I actually started to get really into the book at this point, into the series at this point, because there was so much more about being in space. And this is a spoiler, but obviously if you think about it for a minute, it's fine. The journey to Mars is my favorite part of the book, because it is the interpersonal relationships that you have with like the 5 other people that are stuck on the ship with you, and that you're stuck together for 3 years. The tiny things that can go wrong that can be catastrophic and deadly, like just the sort of inner thought process of being an astronaut. It was really interesting to me. And because I know Mary Robinette, I know that she did an enormous amount of research. She's really, really immersed herself in the science of everything and space travel and talking to astronauts and all of that. And so a lot of it comes from real stories and real research. So there was a big part of me that was like, cool, this is what it's like to be an astronaut. So I really enjoyed it. The other thing that I think she does amazingly is she is not afraid to weave in issues of sexism and racism and homophobia and all the like. And she does it in these ways that are very natural and also obvious. So, for example, because it's an international community that is sending people to Mars, each of the the major players that are putting money into this effort get to submit an astronaut. And one of them is from South Africa during apartheid. And so he is a racist motherfucker. And so that fact spirals into so many pieces of the story in terms of who can travel on his ship because he hates Black people, right? Like, but there are Black astronauts. So how do you navigate that? Or, like things like that I think she made very specific choices in order to address these issues. There's also a character that was in the first book that's in the second book that I actually texted Mary Robinette and was like, oh boy, this character is so real. It is a male character who is very powerful and charming and charismatic, but like deeply sexist and deeply fucked up in a lot of ways. And the anxiety that the main character feels where she's like, I don't know what's going to set him off. I don't know when he's going to be like down and cool and when he's not going to be. And the fact that they're on a ship together for years and like it was very, all of these pieces really make this world so deep and so sincere and genuinely reflecting of a time period and one that feels relevant to our time period now, even though it's the 60s.
I love Mary Robinette Kowal. She's an amazing writer, amazing puppeteer. I love her podcast that she's on.
She's also an amazing person. Right. I see her once a year and it's always delightful.
Most importantly for me, she came on this very podcast and gave what I consider to be the correct review of the movie Starship Troopers. So she has my sword.
All right. Well, go check out all of these things and also submit your own freak out at feministfrequency.com/freakout. That's FREQOUT. Thanks so much for listening to Feminist Frequency Radio. Stay tuned for the Freakin' After Party, which is our bonus, and it's only available to backers of this podcast. You can become a backer of this podcast at patreon.com/femfreak. Did you know that Ebony and I have a Star Trek podcast? Because if you didn't, you do now. And it is currently discussing the new Star Trek show, Picard. So go check that out somewhere.
Space Babe.
I don't know. Space Babe. We will link that link in the show notes so you can join along our Star Trek journey with us. If you haven't yet, go to iTunes, subscribe, rate, review us. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and all the social medias at FemFreak. The show is engineered by Rob Parra. Carrie Stimson provides technical support, artwork by Jamie Varon, and our intro music is by Phil Circus. Join us next week for another feminist dive into popular culture. Bye.
Later.